What's up, everybody? Back in week five with our predictions and picks and bets for this week. If you're following along last week, you would see that we didn't do too bad. Two for three, which is, we'll take that rate all day with our bets. With once again, our locks hitting at a great rate with the Raiders at -2 at home against the Broncos. There's just no way the Raiders are going to lose and start the season 0-4. I think that's a great pick on us, obviously, in retrospect when it wins. But I think a lot of people maybe had their doubts on that, but sometimes you got to see through the fog and, play a little bit of storylines there. And then don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content. And as always, comment in the sections what your picks are this week and if you got any questions on maybe what to bet on too. But the first game we'll start with is the Falcons taking on the Bucks in Tampa Bay. Bucks going off two straight home losses, albeit against two very worthy opponents, in the Packers and the Chiefs. Slee, do you think the Bucks stop their slide here or tumble to the Falcons? Who looked better than I think everyone, including ourselves, has expected this season.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the Falcons offense, just their ability to put points on the board and even just grind one out against the Browns last week was surprising. We had the Browns, so obviously we had a bad read on that one. But I do think the Buccaneers bounce back here. They've sitting at 2-2. Tom Brady, you never know when it's going to be his last season. I think they could turn it on at any minute. Obviously, they played some tough teams to start the season. I have a hard time seeing them drop in three in a row at home, especially here against the Falcons. But obviously, the spread reflects that. What are you thinking is a spread play here?
Yeah, I think there's just absolutely no way the Bucks drop three straight at home with Tom Brady, even amid his, marriage shambles. Let's say, I think they probably still covers 8.5, but to be really safe, I'm gonna tease this down a little bit. But I just think this is the game where like everyone on this team, including Tom Brady, is just fed up because they know they can play better. This team's not going to go below 500, and if they win this game, I'd be surprised if it's not by more than 2.5 points. So I think it's a really good spot to tease here. 8.5 can be a lot. I still think the Bucks covers 8.5. Again, coming off two straight road losses, not going to go below 500. Cordero Patterson, the best player on this Falcons team the last year and a half, is out. I think all signs point to the Bucks here. Yeah.
Yeah, on top of that one, I feel like they just got way off on the wrong foot against the Chiefs. That opening.
Yeah, yeah. Shot themselves in the foot that way. Yeah, definitely.
Yep. Moving on here, this is a London game. I know we've got burned on those in the past.
Yeah, I was gonna
Pulling
say
one out here.
this game is still in GB, but it's not Green Bay this week. It's in Great Britain. Haters didn't see that one coming, Slee. I thought about that one about 10 minutes ago. Yeah, London game. Giants taking on the Packers here. This line, I think, is at least moved to 8, if not 8.5. People have been hammering the Packers lately, as I will be doing too, Slew. I think Packers are a lot better than what they showed against the Patriots at home. Rodgers throws a pick in that game, and something he almost never does at home. But like I was telling you earlier, Slew, I always expected Bill Belichick to give any quarterback, especially because someone like Aaron Rodgers, more difficult time than it seems, no matter who he's throwing on the field. Obviously, this Packers offense is not their strength. It is their defense, and that's what kept them in the game and ultimately won in that game. But I expect them to bounce back against the Giants team that seems to be a lot, but outside of Saquon Barkley, a lot less talented than I'd say the Patriots in just about every position besides quarterback and running back.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the Giants got exposed a little bit last time out against the Cowboys. I just it's tough for me to take the Giants right now. I'm just not fully sold on any of their wins. And just going along with what you mentioned about the Packers, the defense is their strength, but I think their offense is just going to continually get better as the season goes along.
Yeah,
Rodgers building chemistry with those guys. You saw
exactly.
and,
And so many
run
young receivers. I totally agree.
both scored touchdowns last game. They're just going to start to turn it on more and more as the season goes on. I think the Packers are a very safe bet to win this game
I think so
and
too. And
possibly even cover.
I think, and I just thought about too. You watched the game against the Cowboys, and they in Demarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons were living in that backfield. There is no team in the NFL that has a higher pressure rate and a better pass rush grade than the Packers. The Packers are going to be living in this backfield and all over Daniel Jones. That just makes me like the Packers even more. I just thought of that like just now. That is going to be a huge difference maker. I don't think the Giants are going to be able to win this game running the ball with Saquon alone, and I really don't think they're going to be able to pass this game. I ended up putting the under at 4.5 here, just think, or 41.5 here, and I still think that's decent, just based on some of the Packers' offensive challenges. But what I really like here is the more I talk about is the spread for the Packers. But I'm going to end up teasing this and pairing it with the Bucks, and I really like that because again, this pass rush is effective. Pass rush can make all the difference in the world, and I think you're going to see that this game with the Packers just living again in the Giants' backfield. Moving from England to New England, also thought about that one. Right, Lions taking on the Patriots here. I'm just loving the puns, man. It's just for my own amusement. I think people might be surprised with this Patriots line at -3. It's leaning more towards going to -2.5 of late, just because of how good this Lions offense has been. I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it might be the number one scoring offense in football, but they're also one of the worst, if not the worst, scoring defensive football, letting up some of the most points, if not the most points in the NFL. So it's kind of a matchup of, what side of the lines, side of the football is really going to take over the game. Is their offense going to win the game, or is the defense going to lose it for them? And more often than not, I think the Patriots really exploit your weak spots, and I think that's what they might do here this week. What are your initial thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, this one's tough for me because I'm a little biased. I've been loving the Lions this year. But with that said, their defense has been absolutely awful. No matter how many points they put on the board, they're still finding ways to lose games. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift battling injuries too. I
Yeah,
don't think they're going to put up as many points as they did. Obviously, or I think that's a pretty safe bet that
I
they
think
don't
so too.
put up the same amount of points they did last week. But also on top of that, TJ Hawkinson had a career game and they still came up short. I don't think the Lions are quite there yet, especially on the defensive side. Got
Yeah,
to lean with Belichick in a game
no,
like
yeah, but I mean, Belichick. What are the Patriots? 1-3 right now. So
that.
the Lions. I was saying you too. I have a hard time living in a world where the Lions have a better record than the Patriots. Give me the Patriots at home by 3 points. I'm going to probably buy half a point, make it 2.5 here. But I love the Patriots spreader just because of the fact that the Patriots are going to do two things this game. They are going to run the ball as much as they can, and I really don't think the Lions are going to be able to stop them because they just let like the running backs, all the running backs for Seattle just run all over them, even when they were in dire need to stop them. And then number two, the Patriots on defense, they're going to take away the passing game for the Lions to the best of their ability. You saw Belichick in the Super Bowl kind of do the same thing to Jared Goff when he's on the Rams. He's going to try to do the same thing, and if not, replicate that with the Lions, where he's going to take away the best couple options that they have, especially if Amon-Ra St. Brown is still either out or just battling that ankle injury, which will definitely slow him down. It's going to be tough for the Lions to come up with much. I bet you get Jared Goff's going to make one too many mistakes. Patriot football is they don't make too many mistakes, if any. I think that's going to be the reason why the Patriots win this game at home against the Lions. Moving on, we got the Titans at 2.5 point favorites. Coming off a big win against the Colts, facing the Washington Commanders, who are still the football team in our hearts. And it's still a team that, regardless of how they play, we're always going to be in their corner, Sliwa. They're our baby. What are you thinking here?
So I know we've been talking a lot this year how we're not going to be betting on Washington because of our
A
bias from last
situational
season.
game.
This week that changes. Me and
Yep.
Woj, we were both we were both on Washington plus 2.5 here. I think this can be a bit of a trap game for Tennessee after winning their last two, and also with Washington just playing pretty awful in their last two. I'm liking getting points here at home on a team that's still pretty solid, doesn't have a massive glaring hole on either side, but just plays decent football. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they look Washington looks terrible. But that being said, you can't bet on the NFL based on solely on what you see in the past. Like you got to realize this team does have talent. Like Carson Wentz does play well some games. You just never know what's going to be. That's why it's so tough betting on this team. But he's got a great receiver in Terry McLaurin too, and they have a solid defense that shows up sometimes. But They beat a Jaguars team in week one. That's, I'd say they're only getting better, but they're still Jaguars are a decent team. And now, remember when I said it last week, see where I betted them to win the AFC South?
Right.
The
Look
Jaguars
up.
are now the favorite to win the AFC South. So I got my money in good. Um, but this for me, this Lion Scream trap game when it came out, like Titans, everyone's probably saying the Titans just beat the Colts. Titans are 2-2. They got Derrick Henry. They were favored by 2 points to start this, going against the Washington team that looks terrible. And it's the money's been going on Tennessee. And just to me, it's bells are ringing and says this has got to be a trap game, right? This has got to be a game where Washington steps up. Trayvon Burks, the number one receiver now, maybe outside of Robert Woods in Tennessee, he's injured. I don't think he's going to be playing. Another big plus for the football team there. Something just tells me this is why they step up and figure it out. And I think mostly this game doesn't really have to make sense on paper, but I think what it really does is the line just seems so fishy, and Washington is due for a bigger win or just a win, where I think it's a good spot to be betting them. Plus the points at home, like they might lose a close one. I think they're going to win this one outright, though. Anything to add, Leo, before I move on?
Nah, no, nothing else for
Let's
me.
hope if they don't
This
cover
one's
this
more of
one,
a gut play.
say that again.
This one's more of a gut play.
Good play. And hey, the Raiders were too, and it worked out. So but if they don't win this one, then they really might be on our no bet list. Divisional matchup here with the Bengals coming off a long week and a big win against Miami, taking on the Ravens, who had a tough loss and a close loss against the Bills last week. I'll let you go first in this one, Leo, and then I'll provide my opinion on this game.
Yeah, so I don't know where you're leaning on this one. I do both of these teams a lot. These are two of my more favorite non-Chicago teams in the NFL.
Yeah.
Just looking at the line though, I'm leaning Cincinnati +3 here. I think they're starting to pull it together a little bit after their terrible start. And as much as I like the Ravens, I love Lamar, that defense I just haven't been able to trust. I don't know how they fell apart and lost that game against the Bills.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to trust the Ravens right now. They're still a great football team, but they have not been able to close out games. I like the Bengals +3 here in a close one.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of great points. I'm actually on the Ravens. So I didn't want to tell you my lean. I wanted to hear your honest opinion. I'm on the Ravens here, and it's really for one reason only, and that's Lamar Jackson. And he just looks unstoppable. I know, like this team loses, sure, but this one, just a divisional game, it's going to be a close game. And I also think with the new defensive coordinator, this Ravens defense is slowly going to get better and better. Part of me thinks that this Bengals team, they went to the Super Bowl, but I don't think we can be judging them based on like this is Super Bowl caliber teams. That offensive line still has an incredible amount of holes in it, despite the free agency offseason build that the Bengals had. Marlon Humphreys is a great cornerback, and he's really good in single coverage, which you kind of have to play against the Bengals with their trio of good receivers. But he's got like an incredible passing grade in single coverage. I think that'll help a lot. I think it's going to be a really good game, probably a high scoring game, but I think the Bengals are the best. I mean, I think the Ravens are the better team, and I think this Lamar Jackson is just playing MVP caliber football. And yeah, I don't know. Something tells me that Ravens at home. If this game is in Cincinnati, it would not be the same pick, but the way Lamar Jackson is playing has me incredibly impressed. And I think the home field advantage really gives us the edge for me. But to your point, Stu, I think you made a lot of good points. I think if I wasn't so in awe of Lamar Jackson and how just he amazes me week in and week out, then I think logically the Bengals make sense. But I think coming off a loss, especially against a divisional opponent at home, adds to like my narrative for the Ravens too.
Yeah, I see it. Bengals just a lean for me more so. I probably won't be.
Yeah, no, I think you make a lot of good points, and I'm still on the Ravens, but you made me like, oh, you bring up some solid arguments here. Here we got the Chargers taking on the Browns in Cleveland. A lot better weather this time around in Cleveland, like not a ton of wind. I checked the weather report before we added this one to the game because a lot of these games in Cleveland, you get like 15-mile-per-hour winds and like kicking and punting is out of the question, but that's not the case this game. So Chargers, a couple key injuries. Obviously, Herbert's still nursing that rib injury, but he's playing. But then Joey Bosa pictured here out. I think he's out. I don't know if it's for the season, but he's out for a very long
He's
time.
out for a while.
I think it's
IR.
bicep. Yeah. regardless, he will not be playing this game. And Keenan Allen too. He's battling a hamstring injury. Based on his injury history, he will not. My guess is he will not be playing this week. He's one very injury prone, but things like that, when you're injured like tendons, like groins and hamstrings, it takes a while for that to heal because it's so easy to re-aggravate those injuries. Speaking from experience as well. But what do you think this game?
Right. Obviously, Chargers battling a lot of injuries early on the season. This is nothing new for them.
No,
They've been
not at all.
a heavily injured team year in, year out. Regardless of that, I still think the Chargers have a little bit more talent on both ends. Maybe not so much on defense, but I still think the Chargers are a more talented football team. And then just looking into the numbers a bit, Chargers obviously like to pass the ball. Cleveland's secondary, middle of the pack, and then same thing on the other end. Cleveland wants to run the ball a lot. Chargers middle of the pack on their second or in their run defense.
Yeah,
So I don't think either team has too great of a matchup here. This is more of a play for me. I'm liking the Chargers -3 and just leaning more so on Herbert to just put up more points, really outscore the Browns here. I think if the Browns get down early, they're going to have a very tough time getting back in the game, obviously. They want to rely on that run. Jacoby Brissett has the highest QBR of his career, and this team is still struggling. They're 2-2. They got losses or 2-2 with a schedule against the Jets, the Panthers, the Steelers, and the Falcons. You got to win at least 3 of those games to convince me you're at least a decent, if
yeah,
not good football team. That's not a tough schedule at all. You're sitting at 2-2. This is the toughest game you have so far this season. I think the Chargers win this one pretty
yeah.
easily.
I think that's a really compelling points. I think that whoever gets up early this game is going to control the pace of this game. Chargers get up early, it's going to force Cleveland to fall behind, obviously, and then kind of abandon that run game, which is not what they want to do. And then if Cleveland gets up early, that puts the Chargers. That probably doesn't change their offense too much, but it just allows Cleveland and Nick Chubb, more importantly, to kind of take over that game. And the more carries Nick Chubb is going to get, the more dangerous that offense becomes. Because number one, he's bound to break one off because he's just so good after contact. And two, that just sets up the play action, sets the physicality of the game. And that's the kind of football the Browns want to play. And more importantly, it forces Brissett to not to make too many plays too. So I think the Chargers get up early here. Hopefully, then I think they might cruise this win. I like this one too, especially with the Chargers definitely have a more realistic shot to win this division than the Browns do, and they really can't afford to really fall too behind the eight ball here. And then thinking back about the Browns, like their loss against the Jets, like they just blow. The Browns are going to Brown some games, and something the Chargers were the best at last year. They were number one in fourth quarter points. So even if the Browns do get up, then I wouldn't be shocked to see Herbert lead this team to this couple of fourth quarter drives to win this game too. I think it's a good spot for the Chargers. As I'm not saying they're a winning franchise or a winning organization, but right now they're trending in the right direction. The Browns are trending in the wrong direction. I think that momentum matters as well. So
Okay.
Chargers -3 here. That's the last thing we're going to add to our card as we show you our bets here. We talked Patriots. I'm going to buy that half point for that -2.5. Again, I think the Patriots at home against the worst defense in the NFL, like Belichick, is going to slow down the Lions offense, going to control the clock in the ball with the run game, which is something they do very well behind a very strong offensive line. I think that one's a really good pick for the Patriots to avoid going 1-4. And the Ravens kind of went against what Slee was leaning, but I like the Ravens here off a loss, divisional opponent at home. The spread implies that the Ravens are of equal talent with the Bengals. I just don't believe that's true, especially the way the Bengals started the season. Definitely a little shaky. And it all really comes down to that offensive line of the Bengals that's really going to struggle against any pass rush, but the Ravens pass rush too. And Slee, I'll let you take these next two with the Commanders and the Chargers.
Yeah, I think the Commanders here, like we mentioned, this one's a bit more of a gut play. They haven't really played well and honestly haven't looked too great, especially in the last couple. We think this line's a little bit fishy. Tennessee's coming off a couple wins now. They're getting a little bit more momentum, but at the same time, I don't think this Tennessee team is up to par with where they've been in the last few years. It's
Yeah.
not really a solid playoff football team in my mind anymore. But taking the Commanders +2.5 here, I think Wentz and that offense steps up a little bit. At least put some points on the board in the first half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chargers -3. This one is my one pick on the board here. And Woj did sell him a little bit on this one, but just think the offense allows the Chargers to play this game either in the lead or from behind. I think the Browns are a little bit limited. If they get down early, I think they're really going to struggle. And then I'll let you take your teaser bets here on the bottom.
Yeah, two things I just thought about too that I didn't mention before for those two games. With the Commanders, it kind of seems like a game the Titans might be looking past these guys. They come off a big divisional win on the road. They're focused on winning that division, and people are just, kind of writing off the Commanders, and for good reason. But that's dangerous in football. The Chiefs were definitely looking past the Colts to the Buccaneers after last week or 2 weeks ago on the road, and they lost them. So looking past teams is always dangerous when that team has a losing record and something to prove. And then the Chargers, if they're going again without Garrett and Clowney, that's huge for the Chargers too. So kind of play on the injury side too for the Chargers there. And then that teaser bet, I love this one. This is our lock. Again, our locks have been hitting at an unreal rate. If you just bet these locks for $1 trillion each week, long term, you're making money. But Packers -2.5 here. I think you could probably bet both these games, just straight up spread and win. Packers -2.5. These guys like Preston Smith, Rashad Gary are going to be living and breathing down Daniel Jones' neck all game long. They're not going to be able to throw the ball 1 inch this whole game. And then the Buccaneers really a play on, is Tom Brady going to lose 3 straight games at home? Is Tom Brady in this? Not even just Tom Brady. This Buccaneers team is very good outside of him. It's not like it's just Tom Brady carrying this team. Is this team going to lose 3 straight at home and go below 500 in like the easiest division of football against Falcons team that's without their best player, Cordell Patterson? Not a chance in my mind. So, and Marcus Mariota, like everything, it's just love this. I just love this bet so much, Lua. Teaser bet, Packers 2.5, Bucks 3. I already hammered this on even before the video, just in case the line moves. Go all in, baby. So that's our card. As a reminder, Prize Picks. If you're looking to get more into gambling, use our code PROPICS. You'll sign up and they'll match your deposit for a little free money account up to $100. So definitely something worth looking into. But moving on to the rest of the games, well, this will forever be the Peyton Manning Bowl in my mind with the Colts and the Broncos here, just every time. Broncos -3.5 here, and the reason being because Colts are likely without their stud Jonathan Taylor, albeit the Broncos are without Javonte Williams, but they got a little more depth and a little less fall off at running back. So I think that's the big reason here. What do you think in this game? For the rest of these games, you don't know my leans at all. So I'll let you talk first, then I like to hear your honest opinion.
Yeah.
And then I'll tell you what I'm thinking.
Yeah, personally, I mean, both these teams have been sort of letdowns, even with the Broncos sitting at 2-2. Russell Wilson hasn't been what anybody expected. And then the Colts on the other end just somehow went from being a front runner for that division to possibly third. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah.
My favorite play here, though, is the under. Both of these teams are along with the Bears, these are 2 of the top 3 worst scoring offenses in all of football. They both average about 14 and 17, something like that. It's really low. You got Javonte Williams out now. Obviously, Russell Wilson could go off, but I'm not betting on it after what I've seen in these first few weeks.
Yeah, no, I like
Matt Ryan looks pretty awful. Colts are still going to want to run the ball. It's going to run a lot of clock off. I like the under in this one.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I like that a lot. I also like -3 for the Broncos here, and the reason being, without this run game for the Colts, presumably it's going to fall off without Jonathan Taylor, and it hasn't even been that stellar with Jonathan Taylor. Matt Ryan he looks terrible this year. He can still make a few throws, but he's just so slow and almost unaware in the pocket. I've seen him every time I play getting strip sacked and turnover. I think really in every single game. It is probably a bias and not correct, but it seems like every time I turn the channel and watch the Colts, he's getting sacked from behind and getting stripped. If they can't run the ball and force Matt Ryan to pass, like this Broncos pass rush is gonna get to him. They have a pretty good secondary in Broncos. Even though the Broncos are losing Javonte Williams, they still got Melvin Gordon, who's been good when he holds on to the football. And then the real big key loss for the Colts, I mean, Jonathan Taylor's huge, but almost as big on the defense side of the football is I think they're without Darius Leonard, like one of the best linebackers in the game. That's not going to help them either. He's like the quarterback of the defense there. He was so good in the run and pass game. I think it's time the Broncos, let Russ cook. If you ever seen those memes on Twitter, but I think it's time for the Broncos to maybe show their true colors if they haven't already. So I like that one there. So what Saints here after a tough loss with a double doink in London, travel back to NOLA, take on the Seahawks that coming off a pretty emotional win, I'd say, on the road against the Lions.
Yeah, no, I personally was on the Saints last week. That
So
one hurt quite a bit,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's going to be tough for me to trust the Saints again after that one. They didn't look too bad. That offense just can't trust it right now. And then same on the other end. I can't really get a good read on this Seahawks team. This one's
No,
going to be really tough for me to really have a lean on either end. I don't think it's going to be too fun of a game to watch.
I won't be watching too much of this one.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Kamara has been injured, even with him not injured. It's tough. It's tough. What do you lean in?
Yeah, I threw up the Saints minus 5.5 for a couple reasons. Kamara's gonna be back, and he hasn't been stellar, and he's definitely not his old self, and probably never will be. But I still think he's solid. I think the real thing is that it's kind of like this is a matchup just like the very similar to the Patriots take on the Lions. This Saints defense is really good, and they are not going to let the Seahawks score as many points as they did. The Seahawks really torched the lines of the run game. That's the Saints defense specialty, although they're really solid all around. I think you saw this Seahawks team put up a lot of points. I think with Kamara and this Saints team in general, they're going to be able to put up enough points to beat them, and their defense is going to hold like they've been holding a lot of teams this season to maybe a lower expected point total than normal. I think the fact that the Saints coming off a loss and the Seahawks are coming off a win kind of shifts this line in the Seahawks' favor, twofold. And so I'm not betting it. Excited, I'm not going to get burned by the Saints again. How Jameis is so turnover prone. I'm sorry, but if I had to pick one side, I think logically the Saints minus 5.5 makes sense here. I just don't, and I think by the same token, the under is actually a really good bet here too. With the Saints offense being kind of inept and then their defense being so strong, I'd be surprised if the Seahawks put up like 20 points. That's why, and that's what the spread is implying. Like a 25-20 game.
Yeah, no, actually, I like the under here a lot. If I'm going anything here, I think I'd take the under here.
Yeah, no,
it's been a record low scoring season, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been. It has been. And what's actually crazy? Mark was telling me this recently. Road dogs, or not road, just dogs. If they very seldom this season have they lost and covered. So by the flip side, favorites, if they're winning, they're covering. So it's like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you think a team's going to win, you should bet them to cover. If you think a dog's going to cover, just bet them to win. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Good value there too.
So obviously. I think just playing off that trend, also that makes a lot of sense. Let's go through these next ones a little closer. These games a little faster. These games, the back half are a little more lopsided. You got the Vikings hosting the Bears here. Bears offense, like you said, one of the worst in the league. Albeit though, it seems like the Vikings always play up or down their competition, except that Eagles game. But what do you think about this one quickly?
Yeah, I think from what I've seen the first couple of weeks, I can't trust this Bears team. I don't think the Giants were very good, and they still looked pretty awful in that game, only putting up 12 points. I like the Vikings here a lot at -7. I think they could give the Packers a run for their money for the division quietly. But yeah, I think this Vikings team is pretty solid. Their defense is a little better than last year.
Definitely, which isn't saying much. So their defense last year was pretty
exactly. Terrible. But yeah, they're at least rounding out their team a little bit. I think the Vikings are going to start building some team, get a little bit more momentum.
Yeah, for me, I took the over here because one, I think the Vikings offense is going to be good enough to put up like 30 points against the Bears, and then I think Justin Fields in garbage time does some stuff right, or if, at the very least, will throw picks and give the Vikings a better opportunity. But I think I like the over here for at least a lean. But I don't know. I think the Bears seem to be able to put up and scrap together. Giants was something different because I think they have a little bit better defense than the Vikings, but I think the Bears are strapped together like 14 points. Vikings get like close to the 30 mark and it overhits. But I can never trust the Vikings in divisional games. Can never trust Kirk Cousins in these games. So I like stay away from that. Game here, you got the Jags, who are again favored to win the AFC South, hosting the Texans. For me, Sleewer, I'm on the Texans 7.5, and the reason why is because one divisional matchup, kind of unproven for the Jags, and people have told me this is. I have not checked this, but in the comment section of the videos, people have said the Texans have won 8 straight against the Jaguars. Cannot confirm, but the numbers apparently are there. So that's my reasoning. I just think honestly, even before I heard that, I'm like, this is a lot. 7.5 now, I think it is. It's a lot for a divisional opponent that really is, a 500 record and is unproven. Again, I mean, Texans last year were terrible. They came into Tennessee needing to win, and they got it. Like, you can't be reading just what you've seen in the past. This Texans team is the only winless team in football. That's got to hurt their pride. They're coming in a divisional opponent that they've owned in the past. Like, I think that lends itself to, hey, let's at least keep this game within one score.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm a little glad here to hear you're on the Texans because I am as well. I know you have that Jags future bet on the division,
Yeah.
but also going along with your last point, I mean, seven's a lot, so you might as well take your touchdown here. But I would dabble a little bit in the money line.
I think so
I
too.
think the Jags have a lot of hype around them right now, especially for a 2-2 team. I think it's
I
obviously
agree.
because the division's been pretty bad, but this Texas team isn't awful. They competed with the Colts. They definitely should have beat the Bears.
Dude,
I think
these AFC South divisional matchups are always close when you bring up the Colts game like that. Like they play everyone plays this division tough. And so, except the Colts when they go to Jacksonville. Otherwise, the people play the division tough. I'm glad you said that too, because it's weird picking a winless team in the spread, but I think it's warranted there. Check this one out. This one might surprise you here. Dolphins without Tua taking on the Jets in New York. I'm not actually taking, but if I were to bet it, I had to bet one side, I'd be betting the Dolphins here. And the one reason and the only reason why, Sliwa, is because games in his career where Teddy Bridgewater starts, he has covered the spread an astounding 66.7 times. Exactly 2/3 of the times he starts, he's covered the spread. So I'm going to play the law of averages here, and I'm taking Teddy. Teddy covers, baby. That's it. That's my analysis.
yeah, I think Zach Wilson's good for at least two turnovers in this one.
Thanks, so.
Miami's defense, just yeah, great forcing takeaways. I was back and forth on the spread. My pick here is the prop Wilson 2 turnovers.
I like that. It's got to be plus. I guarantee it's plus money, but I can see that too. You know what surprised me the most this year from this Miami team is their pass rush. And Melvin Ingram, great addition,
Yeah,
but
like age 33.
yeah, you get pressure, turnovers are going to happen, either strip sack or hurried throws. So yeah, I think Teddy covers, baby. This game, it's just so hard for me to say because this doesn't make sense. This is such a biased line at -5.5. But what I've seen from the Eagles this year and the Cardinals, um, the Cardinals offense, like how are they going to put up points against this Eagle defense that is so good in so many aspects? I don't know, and I hate leaning even to the side because I think everyone is on the Eagles hype train. Well, after I was, by the way, a lot of preseason bets in the Eagles. But just because of how much hype is around the Eagles, like it just you shouldn't be picking them on the road 5.5 against a fellow bird team. Come on, man. So I'm still going to go that way. These guys look unstoppable, and I think, and obviously they're not. Every team's going to fall and going to surprise you, but this Cardinals offense looks so terrible. Kyler throwing pick sixes against the Panthers, who do have a good defense, but this Cardinals offense isn't good, and they're going to struggle against a really good Eagles offense and a really good Eagles defense. Like they're a very complete football team, and I think 5.5. I can't stay away from putting my name on that.
I don't think you can help but going with the public on this one. Can't bet against the Eagles is what I've seen so far, especially with the Cardinals just not even looking that good against the Panthers last week either.
Yeah, I will tell you what though, if I look on Sunday and I see 80-90% of the public is on this Eagle spread, I will just blindly bet the Cardinals because I have to. It's just I think everyone's going to bet this line. But let's keep an eye out for that. Rams after their loss against the 49ers, which I kind of suspected, taking on the Cowboys, and Cooper Rush has looked decent. For me, I think with how good this Cowboys defense is, I think, and how let down the Rams offense to be this year, especially in the run game. They really don't have Rams don't have an offense really outside of Cooper Kupp, unfortunately. But you just can't stop Cooper Kupp from getting 13 receptions and 120 yards a game. But I think 4.5 is a lot. I had to lean that way. The one thing I'm scared about is Cooper Rush going against solid guys like Donald and Ramsey. Obviously, hasn't seen talent like that before, and be interesting to see how he reacts. But I think my lean's in the Cowboys.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. Cowboys top 3 defense. Rams, I want to say 27th in scoring offense. This game's oddly similar to me to that Niners game that just happened last
Yeah,
night.
I think so too. Just
I like
Cooper Rush
I like
game manage. That's all you got to do when you win this game. At least you cover.
sharp decline too
Yeah, yeah.
so
Few
far.
more, few more games. You're moving on to the divisional matchup of the Raiders and the Chiefs. For me, again, 7.5 for the Chiefs team that looks incredible, absolutely great. AFC West divisional matchups. These teams always seem to play each other tough for some reason. Just, I think I've seen too many of these games over is my pick here, just because Chiefs are going to put up points against a really bad Raiders defense, and I think the Raiders for some reason hang with these guys this game. 7.5. That's where the line should be, but over.
Yeah, I like the over here too. If I'm taking spread, I like Raiders plus 7.5.
I do
They're
too.
still
It's
they're still 1-3. They need to pick it up a little bit. Not even if they win, but they got to at least play competitive football.
They have a good enough offense where this is a great backdoor cover opportunity at 7.5.
Okay. Yeah.
But I like the over here too. I think the Chiefs put up. It's hard to say Chiefs put up 30, but I think the Chiefs their offense is rolling right now. They just put up a ton of points against the Bucks defense, who's completely healthy. Like how
Yeah.
they got lucky in some turnovers, but we'll give it to them. Second to last game here, Slee. Niners coming off a big win against the Rams, taking on the Panthers, who, again, we say a few weeks now, one of the worst teams in football. They have a great defense, but against a really good defense against the Niners, I don't know how Baker Mayfield in this offensive line, more importantly, handle Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, and this 49ers defense. You can see this total is very low. 38.5 is about as low as you're going to see most totals go. And it still speaks to how much they think the Niners are going to win by. They don't think Vegas doesn't think the Panthers are going to put up like any points this game. And I believe them. I think the Niners are going to play their brand of football and play such tough football. They're going to put up enough points like Debo and Kittle blocking the rest of the way to beat these guys. I'd be surprised if the Panthers put up more than 13.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Niners blow them out. Just same narrative we've been on. Panthers is not a good football team, especially just pretty
Not
horrendous offense. Baker has not been as advertised.
not a team you really want to be putting much of your money on. Last game here, I left it last for a reason. What's there to say about this game? The Bills are at home taking on Kenny Pickett in his first career start. Here's my pick. The Bills are going to win. Okay. That's all I got. I think they're going to kill them. I think it's going to be more than a 14-point win, but I'll never touch a 14-point spread.
Yeah, I know. I think obviously Bills are going to win this game. Personally, not touching anything here.
Yeah, and that just leaves us to, just a quick review of our bets. We did pretty well last week, but if you're going to bet anything, bet that lot because that's our big money winner. But best of luck, picking and gambling in week 5 of the NFL.